Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Razan Pereira. Prime Minister Narendra Modi pitched for a global electricity grid while inaugurating the first General Assembly of the International Solar Alliance on Tuesday, stressing that India would generate 40% of power from non-fossil fuels by 2030. The Prime Minister called for connecting solar energy supply across borders, giving the mantra of one world, one sun, one grid. He also said that he saw the 121-country ISA as the future OPEC for meeting energy needs of the world. Oil cartel OPEC, led by Saudi Arabia, currently meets close to half of the world's oil needs. He said solar power will play the same role that oil wells have played over the past few decades in meeting global energy needs. Talking about India's plans for the renewable energy, he said that India would add as much as 40 gigawatts of non-hydro renewable energy to existing 72 GW and is successfully marching on the way to achieve the target of having 175 gigawatts of clean energy by 2022. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the feasibility of a global electricity grid. Joining me on the program today are Praful Pathak, Secretary General, Solar Energy Society of India; Ajay Shankar, former Additional Secretary, AND, Ministry of Power; Professor Sunil Chowdhury, Director, Developing Countries Research Centre, Delhi University; and A.K. Bhattacharya, Editorial Director of the Business Standard. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Praful Pathak, I'd like to begin the program with you first. Of course, let's talk about the feasibility and if it's possible really to have a global electricity grid.
Well, this is the idea or the dream which our Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned yesterday. And if I have to say, you need to dream, because when you dream something, you will start thinking on that. You will start gaining the resources you have. And if you look at this solar sector today and what was there 5 years back, there are a lot of changes that has come up, and in that context, I feel this is the right time to dream for such a thing. If I have to mention, I will mention a small thing that has happened in our country. In Maharashtra, there is one Chief Minister grid which is totally based on solar. So if that can happen, whatever our Prime Minister is aiming at or what dream he is looking after, I think after some few years that can be possible.
All right. But with geopolitics or the geopolitical situation the way it is right now, Mr. Shankar, do you think that it is feasible really to be integrated world over as far as an electricity grid is concerned?
If you look at electricity grids, then India has been on the global frontier because for such a large country, we have an integrated national grid. So that's a huge achievement. We are more integrated than most countries in the world. And I recall at one stage when I was in the Ministry of Power, there was a Chinese delegation of 30-40 people trying to understand how we had achieved such success in integrating our national grid. Europe as a whole is more or less integrated. The United States is more or less integrated. And if you look at the solar potential of the planet, then it makes great sense to use all the landmass of the deserts of the planet to generate solar power and to take it to the densely populated areas where that landmass may not be available to generate a lot of solar power. So I remember reading a report somewhere that the whole of Saharan desert could be covered with solar plants, and it could be taken to Europe, and Europe could give up dependence on gas and start using solar. Within India itself, you have this huge desert belt in Rajasthan, bits of Gujarat, and across the border there is a desert belt. So it makes great sense to look towards the long term and see how you can use the landmass of the deserts or wastelands or even the hills, which are not wooded, to generate solar power so that you can meet the needs of everybody else. And the fact of the matter is that if mankind is to survive, the challenge of global warming is far more serious than most of us recognize it to be.
I like the fact that you're using if mankind has to survive, because it also puts out how grave the problem really is, and it is indeed very grave at this point in time.
Because if you look at the Paris Agreement, it talks of limiting solar global warming to 2 degrees. Experts agree that 2 degrees is too high. You need 1.5. And if you want 1.5, then by about 2040, the planet has to move to a fossil fuel economy, free economy.
Fossil fuel free,
Now,
yes.
the fossil fuel free economy is a huge, huge challenge. But till we recognize the challenge and start acting vigorously, we will get nowhere.
All right. So it's a huge challenge, Mr. Bhattacharya, as Mr. Shankar is suggesting. So what's it going to take really to make this a success?
Well, I will answer this question, but let me first say that it will probably be improper, in my view, to just see this announcement of the Prime Minister Modi just from an economic or energy perspective. I think this is a major, significant foreign policy statement that is sought to be made here, in a sense that the International Solar Alliance coverage has been suddenly been sought to be widened to cover the whole globe, which it was not so far. So by pitching it at a level where it will act as another UN kind of body.
The fact that Antonio Guterres was here.
Exactly. And,
know.
and including the whole of Europe into it, which it was not except France so far. So that, to my mind, is a big statement from a foreign policy perspective, and I think solar energy is being very effectively and diplomatically being used as a foreign policy tool, and its headquarters will be in India. So you are seeing global economic diplomacy or global energy diplomacy probably that you have not seen in the past many years. So that's, I think, is something that has to be recognized. The feasibility, the whether you can reach the target in a certain way to 2040 is a matter of work in progress. So having said that, if you need to achieve those goals, to my mind, the economic policy imperatives and the energy policy imperatives must coalesce. Right now, I don't see these two coalescing at any point in time. Right now, you have the economic policy imperative of a Make in India, which is running directly in conflict with the energy policy imperative of solar energy going to acquire a share of 40% in your energy basket by 2022. Now, that, to my mind, is a major challenge in achieving what the Prime Minister has said today. And I repeat, the economic policy imperatives of making in India, and I'm hinting at the kind of safeguards duties that are being imposed on solar panels and etc., because the whole thing is guided from Make in India imperatives, and that is probably in conflict with a grand international solar energy alliance and India at the head of it. So that conflict needs to be resolved at a conceptual level as well as at an empirical level.
Indeed, indeed. All right, Professor Sunil Chaudhary, solar and renewable energy then, I mean, like it has been stressed by the other panelists, is really the way to go forward. But is it moving forward at, fast enough really?
I see it from two important perspectives. One is that of the success of the yoga program all across the world, this is an initiative which basically tries to see three important convergences. One is economies of the 21st century global world, second is ecology, and third is energy. So it's a synthesis of economy, ecology, and energy, which basically gives different important platform for a country like us, which is basically taking a lead to bring about all those important countries on a common platform. And second, from perspective, could be seen that the success of the OPEC of the 70s could be seen as a new initiative which is very positive and constructive, bringing around 121 countries on one common platform. It is called International Solar Alliance. So this basically would try to bring about energy resources of all these countries, willing countries, on one common platform, and capitalizing, energizing those energies so that the developed and developing countries can come together and bring about one world, one sun, one great objective of Prime Minister Narendra Modi on a realization.
All right. Mr. Pathak, that having been said, talking about energy needs, where are India's and the world's energy consumption really headed, and how do we continue to fuel this, enormous energy need of ours?
I will take you back for last 5 years position of whatever the energy we have, whatever the statistics I have, we have a installed capacity of 175 gigawatt power capacity, which is now 350. So we have doubled whatever we have earlier, but still on the other hand, we are working on the conservation of electricity, and then the needs of our power has been reduced. But now we are going for electric mobility, electric vehicles and all. So in that context, I think the need of electricity is there has to be, means though we have reduced the whatever consumption we have in a sector where it was misused or not properly used, but there are days hereafter wherein the need of energy is going to grow, and to cater that, instead of going from fossil fuels or other means, looking at the sun is I think that is the best thing what we are doing, and we are not going alone. India is taking other countries on this track, and we are leading in giving the human manpower, then resources, then technical support. So this is, I think this is happening for the first time. We are giving to the world something. In fact, if you look at whatever Honorable Prime Minister said yesterday in his talk, the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is one in our Indian mythology. We consider a whole world is one. Even in the when we were talking about IT, we were saying it's a global village. So we are all under one thing, that is sun. And that sun we are considering as a one, we are considering world as a one. Our energy needs, those are definitely going to grow, and to cater that we have this clean and free energy source. So if we take advantage of that, and the technological developments have given us the change. I remember there were days when our past President Abdul Kalam, he was thinking of putting the solar panels on Rashtrapati Bhavan, but we were not having that much technology. But today we have changed from KW to MW and MW to GW. So I think our needs are growing, and this is the best option. Even the rates, if you take the whatever the rates, those were 5 years back, and the solar rates today, that has come up drastically, and now it seems that they are in the reach of the common people.
Right.
So I think this is the right time to take up the things to the world.
All right, it's the right time to take India to the world is what Mr. Pathak is suggesting. Mr. Shankar, that having been said, what needs to be done really to secure India's energy future?
We have to look at 2-3 transitions in parallel. So one is that we have to accept that electricity consumption in the country will grow many times to give our people a decent living standard. So growth in consumption has to be very high. But the consumption has to be tilted in terms of the world of energy towards electricity. So if we can get electrical mobility going in a big way, we can get electricity usage increasing in the energy intensive sector of industry, then that is good, because it moves us away from fossil fuels. And in electricity generation, if we can keep increasing the share of renewables and non-fossil fuels. Now here actually the world has made remarkable progress. So many people in India don't know that for 2-3 years now, Germany, which does not get much sunshine, has had days where the weather has been nice, where they have not used any fossil fuels for their electricity consumption. And since the generation from renewables was so large, they paid consumers to consume more electricity. So if Germany could do it, surely India can do it. We have so much sun.
So it's possible, you're saying,
And
at the end of
much
the
dramatic progress is possible, because we have so far succeeded in the solar field only in the large solar projects. I think the next low-hanging fruit is to get solar panels in our villages and decentralize solar generation. You have 6 lakh villages. You can easily get 6 lakh megawatts out of our 6 lakh villages coming into the grid. And if you get solar energy in the day, then the poor farmer can be given energy electricity in the daytime. Today he gets it at 2 in the morning, he floods his fields, he wastes water. You give him electricity in the day, his productivity will go up. We will move forward towards doubling his income. So there is a huge amount of work is waiting to be done, can be done without government subsidies, and in a manner in which it spreads wealth all around.
But how easy is it to make the switch, do you think?
It is very easy.
All right.
I mean, if you look at the success of the last 7 years, less than 200 megawatts, we are now at 22,000 megawatts in solar. The prices have come down from 17 rupees to 2.5, 3 rupees. 2.5, 3 rupees is actually cheaper than coal-based electricity today. So we have already taken off. So these transitions can be done very quickly.
Sure. Mr. Bhattacharya, is solar energy the answer really to our enormous energy needs?
Well, I would say that given the current global situation, the energy crisis of sorts, I think solar energy is the way to go. Now, coming to what needs to be done and what are the challenges to go the solar way, I see two major challenges that we need to really focus on and work towards solving them. One is storage technology. Now, I think we have made tremendous progress in terms of setting up new capacities, higher capacities, feeding them into grid, but the solar power continues to remain dependent on efficient system of storage. So therefore, if you want to use solar power as effectively and as efficiently as you would like to use thermal power or fossil fuel power, then I think the storage technology has to develop very fast and come up to a level where solar power
At
can
what stage is it right now, really?
Well, right now, the battery technology of the storage technology is still to develop and still to come to a level where we can say that we can efficiently and effectively store large amounts of solar power which can be used on non-peak times. Now, solar energy can be stored only through a battery system.
Right.
Now, if you cannot store them, then how do you use them when there is no sun?
Let me add to that.
And let me complete one point.
And then I come back to you.
And the second challenge is that the mineral resources that contribute to making of efficient and effective batteries have been cornered by one country in the world, which is China. Now, if you want to develop a larger share, create a larger share for yourself on the battery situation, unfortunately, the world is very equal. China is having a more than its due share of mineral resources that go into the manufacturing of these storage batteries.
Right.
So therefore, if we need to move to this, as what I said earlier, the economic policy imperative and the energy policy imperative is closer to each other, we need to guide our Make in India program to a way that we can create our own storage batteries and make sure that we acquire enough mineral resources globally available, particularly in Africa, so that we are not dependent
On anybody else.
else.
All right, perfect.
Sorry.
Yes, Mr. Shankar.
There is an alternative technology to storage, which is called solar thermal. In that, you put up huge mirrors and get the sun's rays to focus on a point where you store energy in molten salt. And with that molten salt, you can generate electricity the way you generate electricity from normal coal-fired stations, because there also you basically heat water and get steam out of it. Now, this technology allows you to store heat, generate electricity at night, and this, in my view, is the way to the future, because then you don't need the rare earths, you don't need storage technology, and the costs of solar thermal have also been coming down.
Okay.
So as a country, we need to put up lots of solar thermal plants using parallel mirrors and focusing on molten salt, use it for storage, and drive costs down for solar thermal the way we have succeeded in driving costs down for solar panels, the way we have succeeded in driving costs down for LEDs.
So the alternative method is available.
Is available, but it's not mainstream today. It is not under discussion. I am advocating that we should go at it very vigorously.
All right, I'm just coming to you, Mr.
I
Bhattacharya.
entirely agree with Mr. Shankar on this, but my fear is molten salt is now being acquired to great degree by China and the world. And we need
So China is acting faster than anybody else.
and we need to move in fast
All right.
enough and get those access to the molten
and
salt.
we
move
need to pull
faster
up our
than them.
okay.
And
We need
move
to pull up
faster
our
than them in the
socks.
next 5 years.
Absolutely.
We need to pull up our socks and beat our competition to
Yeah.
it, is what our panelists are suggesting. Mr. Pathak, go ahead.
In fact, you asked Mr. Bhattacharya about the what about the battery storage and what are the situations. In my opinion, these people who are working in the storage sector, particularly by way of battery, they had received an impulse that they are having a great chance to have a technology setup or technology handshake with the solar energy, and they have received that impulse and they are working on that.
All right. So work is in progress, is what you're suggesting. Professor, how can India further cement its energy relationships? Of course, ISA is fantastic. We are moving in the right direction as far as ISA is concerned. But what else needs to be done, really?
I think we can see the success of Indian initiative from two important perspectives. A, again, is that a very small initiative by Government of India and under the present government, success of the LED bulbs from a village to a city. So for past 4.5 years, we have actually saved 9 times of the energy which were being using 4.5 years back. Secondly, when we see in the urban centers, as we have seen that Cochin has been adjusted as one of the best airports, fully solar equipped airports, which has been acknowledged even by the United Nations Environmental Programme. So these two important things would be seen, that from rural areas to the urban centers, if we just put up all these initiatives in a very collective manner, with honest manner, we can basically have very huge success in different areas of study. Secondly, when we see this, because solar energy has been the source of our energies, and the traditions of India, their sun is been treated as the basis of all our energies. So keeping these traditions into mind, the success of solar energies and our efforts to strengthen solar energies could be achieved when India basically is trying to fight for the climate justice against the political injustice or social injustice. We are basically fighting for the climate justice, and this is special initiatives by the Prime Minister when we say that we have to save energy, and the special the renewable energy country attractiveness index, where India is being ranked 3rd, could see India as a lead nation where we can channelize the energy of all those 121 nations part of International Solar Alliance. So this could be an important platform where we basically strengthen our energy initiatives and bring about all those countries on a common platform to coalesce efforts to achieve this one world, one sun, one grid objective of the Prime Minister.
Right. Taking the discussion forward. Now, Mr. Bhattacharya, a comparison was made between ISA and OPEC. Is it a right comparison to be made? Will ISA, be the next OPEC really in the days to come?
Well, I hope ISA does not become the next OPEC, but I hope ISA becomes an international body which, led by India, can actually galvanize global country-level action into making the world more safe and enable it to meet its climate mitigation, goals effectively by 2040. Now, I think ISA should not be acting as a cartel. Instead, it should act as a facilitator for growth of solar energy. So while the comparison is acceptable, but not the comparison in terms of its goals, and because for all practical purposes, OPEC functions as a cartel, and I don't think the idea of an ISA is to function as a cartel. Instead, ISA should function as a body that encourages and makes the world aware of the benefits of solar energy and its many uses.
In crude IT terms, can we say an open source platform of sorts?
Absolutely, something like that. But for that to happen, we must realize that ISA cannot, remain immune to the fact that technology is probably a big disruptor. And when technology comes, with solar energy now being there, now it must also keep in mind that it puts in peril large amounts of investments already locked and committed in fossil fuel technologies in India. Now, I would be very happy to see ISA taking the role wherein it encourages the use of solar energy, encourages the spread of solar energy, and at the same time prevent a kind of a financial blowout
Right.
for the existing fossil power based technologies, because lots and crores of rupees are invested in those technologies. You already see the NPA problem in India is hugely reflected in India's power sector, which has got nothing. They are not going to be, their power will not be lifted if solar power can be sold at 2 rupees 44 paisa a unit. So therefore, I would imagine this problem will arise not just in India but in many other countries,
Right.
which are now right now dependent on fossil fuel. So
Right.
therefore, I would be very happy to see ISA not to function as a cartel but as a facilitator
And
for
an
use
enabler.
of an enabler and resolving the problem that is likely to arise because of the solar energy as a disruptor.
Right.
Because it will mean phasing out the old technology and bringing in the new. And in that transition, I think the costs need to be mitigated.
All right. You know, the time is already up as far as the old is concerned, Mr. Shankar. That's something that you mentioned in your opening remark as well. Mankind really needs to do something about this problem immediately. Why hasn't it already been done? Hasn't it been allowed by, certain cartels, as Mr. Bhattacharya is suggesting?
You see, what was happening till a few years back was that the whole climate change debate was driven by claims for subsidies to promote renewables. So you either argued for a carbon tax, developing countries argued for transfer of resources because of historical injustices. But the wonderful thing that has happened is that technology has moved and rendered this old debate irrelevant.
Right.
So if the power of solar power has come down from 17 rupees to 2.5, 3 rupees in 6 years, it's a revolution. Similarly, if solar thermal works and the price comes down from 8, 9 rupees where it is today to 5, 6 rupees, then we are through. And if we are able to really have a global economy where people live as well as they are living today, they are not asked to make sacrifices. The developing countries give their people better standards of living, and it's a fossil fuel-free economy. Then the future is secure for everybody.
Sure.
And the issue which Mr. Bhattacharya was talking about is a bigger problem for the developed countries because their per capita energy consumption is not rising.
Right.
So I would see a cartel there wanting to slow down the penetration of renewable energy on rational grounds. Whether they're doing it or not, I don't know.
Right.
Within India, since the growth is going to be a multiple of what it is today, I don't see it as that much of a problem.
Right. I'm going to
Because
ask
we're
my-
going to consume 5 times as much.
I'm going
as what
to
we're
ask my
consuming
next
today.
two speakers to be brief because I've got limited time on the program. Mr. Pathak, closing comments from you. Really, there's a mindset that new and renewable technology is expensive. Is that a misconception?
Very true. Means that has been proved. If we two were talking 5 years back, whatever you are saying that it is expensive, it was there. But now whatever the rates available today, and now we are thinking of going globally. Means as our Prime Minister said said that one world, one sun, and one grid. So the message is we have to go globally. We have to
Right.
go out. India has to lead. Indian entrepreneurs, Indian youths, everyone has to lead and go to the world and get what they want.
All right. Professor, close the show for us with your concluding remarks. Of course, what is the future of solar energy is one, and what happens to those countries who don't fall in between the two tropics?
I think time has come that India must take the lead while bringing the cause of all those countries of the global south and competing with the countries of the developed world. And important part of is that technology has used to be basically made, technology has basically made us a slave, but now the time has come with all these kinds of alternatives. We can use technology as our slave. We can become the master of the technology, and this mastering of technology can enable us to use technology for the betterment of the world through channelizing energies all over the world.
All right. On that note, then we'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's it on this edition. See you again next time.